It's preparing, thinking about it.
So much for that.
Here we go. Perfect.
We're on Zoom.
Friday, June 27th, I'll call the Albany Water Board meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is call. All members are present for the exception of Anthony Owens, who had to be out of town. We have the minutes to be approved. There was a slight change that Aaron is corrected. And I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye, motion carries. We have three people who would like to comment. Two, I'm sorry. And go ahead. Mr. Ellis and Mr. Burton. Welcome.
That's 4 frame, but that's okay.
Time frame, yeah. Good. Hold it to about 3 minutes, if you would,
Okay.
please.
All right. So good morning, everybody. My name is Tom Ellis, and I live in Albany. And thank you for allowing public comment here. I work as a teacher in a private school, and for the last 40 or so years, I've worked as an environmental health advocate. I was part of the group that helped close the Answers trash incinerator in 1994 after it malfunctioned. And I was part of an informal group in 1994 that helped convince the city council of that time not to put water fluoridation, not to put fluorides in the city's water supply. Since October of 2023, at a city council meeting, I learned that water fluoridation was being considered again. So I've been speaking at city council meetings since then. And at a meeting on June 5th, I read, this is part of what I read to the city council. There's an audio recording of it on the city's website. I said, I visited the booth of the city water department at the Tulip Fest last month and saw no literature or display about water fluoridation, nor was there any in 2024. Seeing as the water department would implement water fluoridation within the next year or so, if it is to occur, why avoid this effort to inform thousands of Albany residents? A water department employee told me that they had been instructed to not bring up the matter of water fluoridation and was told to refer anyone with questions to the water department commissioner. I hope this failure to educate city residents at the city's largest annual party is an indication the city is moving away from water fluoridation. I have also heard that there is nothing about water fluoridation in the water bill sent to property owners. I'm a renter, so I don't get a water bill. I am also curious as to how renters who do not receive water bills would be notified about water fluoridation, or if they're going to be notified at all. Okay, so I have a few questions. Yeah. Can the water department refuse to put fluorides in the water supply if you determine it is or it may not be safe? Or are you required to fluoridate the water if the city council and the mayor order you to do so? That's one. Has the water board independently examined the safety of water fluoridation? And 3, and I don't mean to be offensive here, but would water department employees be punished if they publicly spoke out against water fluoridation? Thank you.
Anything else?
Oh, I have a,
Go ahead.
yeah, my name's Brian Borden. And I guess my only statement is that I believe water should hydrate, not medicate. I have questions also, and I'd like to submit them into the public record, so Karen, just a second. And oh, you can have a copy. Oh, sorry, there you are. I was looking for it, and I didn't see it. Okay. So I'm gonna just ask my questions and you can add your comments to the minutes when you get a chance to respond. So, what is the official project name for the water fluoridation capital project? I see nothing listed in the the website that lists all the projects, there's no mention. You would think there would be one line item that says project XYZ referring to the project. I understand there's an estimated project shortfall that exceeds $1 million grant by $500,000. How is this shortfall going to be handled and who's paying the extra $500,000? What is the timeline for starting to build the infrastructure? Can you confirm that you are planning to use hydrofluorosilic acid to fluoridate the water? Where will it be coming from? What types of communication are you planning to use to inform the public? When will the public be informed that their water is going to be fluoridated? What other chemical additives are going to be required to neutralize the acidity of the hydrofluorosilic acid if that's what's going to be used? Because I understand it's very acidic and it will affect your lead abatement program, I think. And since accidents do happen, what is the protocol for alerting the public in case too much of the fluoride chemical is accidentally added to the water supply? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. We'll discuss this later and thank you. Appreciate your coming.
Do you mind if we attend the rest of the meeting?
Public meeting.
Can you each identify yourself too?
I'm Chuck Houghton. I'm the chairman of the board.
Rachel
Rachel
Johnson,
Johnson.
the vice chair.
I'm James Gazelle.
James Rizal. Board Secretary.
Joe Coffey, Water Commissioner. I'm Bill Conry, Consultant.
I'm Bill Sipko, I'm the Deputy Commissioner.
I'm Laura Golfo, legal counsel.
Steve Mercier, Marketing Communications.
Yeah, talk to me.
Chris Powers, Chief Fiscal Officer.
Arif Islam, senior accountant. Yeah, it's exactly.
The nice guy.
Time to move ahead with our quarterly reports. On the agenda is the financial report from Chris Powers.
Okay, so we're going. This is the report through May 2025, both monthly and cumulative. The usual kind of verbiage that we do to summarize the monthly and cumulative results of almost $3.2 million worth of revenues, an increase of 708,000 from prior year. Year to date, 16.6 million of revenues through May. That's a $1.7 million increase from prior years. So these increases are in line with what we projected with certainly our rate increases and our billing. We also, as we've started to separate out our miscellaneous customer penalties and year-to-date penalties that's part of that revenue, and that's 74,000 for penalties. Year-to-date is 125. This period was 74, so we're seeing that ramp up. You know, and it's obviously it's an addition to our normal operating revenues. Our expenditures for the period were 1.8 million, basically in line with last year, even a slight decrease. Our year-to-date 13.2 million is a $1.6 million increase from prior year. Our capital spend, next page, for the period was $910,000, of which we received one disbursement related to our Lincoln Park Learning Garden of $250,000. We're now segregating that cash separately into the water board account for usage later in a better track. Previously, it was all relatively fungible in our operating accounts. Our revenues to date for the period with respect to budget were under about $346,000, and year to date about $868,000. So that's relatively spot on. Our expenditures for the period were under budget for almost $1 million, and our year to date under budget is about $4 million. Again, that number is so large is that our budget wise, our revenues are meant to match our expenses. So we do have some excess in certain accounts that whittles down as the year goes on. Point 3 here are other relevant information. Our aged receivables Again, we include, this is not technically age, this actually has the first 30 days, and it's a 3.1 million, pretty similar to our revenue on a monthly basis, is what's in our age bucket, but in our, that's technically outstanding, our age is significantly less, which we can see when you go through the actual aging itself. The balance of, and that's not, we do have a few over 120-day age receivables. I think OGS and I believe Albany Med need to have some collection efforts on it for about 700,000-800,000. We need to make sure we that we're in the process of pursuing. Our year-to-date, well, our line of credit is $2 million still with Bank of America. We'll talk about that next. We're transferring that over to M&T, but at this moment it is still with B of A. And we've also separated out interest paid to date, and our letter of credit with Bank of America, $35,000, and our bond debt about $200,000. But we'll talk about the letter of credit after that.
Hey, just real quick, the age receivable, when we talked about that, that's limited to the large users.
That's
It does not include.
It does, yeah, we're only showing you the large users there, yeah, so, we could give you the whole report and give you the whole age, we could do that for next time if you want, but, no, that's up to you guys. So, next page being, this is just the normal schedule you guys are used to seeing, with the actual numbers in it. Again, it's, well, you know, cumulative, we're about $16.6 million of revenue, about 222,000 of investment income. That's generally about $500,000 per year, so we're kind of we're relatively on track for that. Getting into June, 16 million over 14 million. That's an 11, almost 12% increase from 2024, and in line with certainly our rate increases for this year. Expenses are 13.2 million cumulative and 11.6 million cumulative in 2024. So this is $1.6 million higher. When we went back to 24, these were sort of tracking themselves. They were almost equal, and I tended to brag how great that was, that our expenses were equal from year to year, yet our revenue had gone up significantly from year to year. This is starting to catch up in 25 as we have it. We're fully ramped up in staff. We've had our REIF here since November. We've had our two accountant ones since January. So that we're starting to pay, which I think is really more. You know, I'm certainly our bills on time and settling some issues that may have come up in the past. I've been here a year and a half, almost every so often an older bill will pop up that we have to settle that we didn't budget for, with Keller, things of that nature. So we think we've handled those, and we think that we're this is sort of back to our normal run rate and what our expenses basically should be. Debt service costs, little anomaly there. I think we got something, we got to comment on that bill with respect to some timing issue. What we're doing this year, as opposed to what we did last year, Eric answered this question already, is that we're actually tracking this when we actually pay our larger bonds. So those bonds are gonna have two coupon payments. One's in June and one's at the end of the year. We haven't paid the one coupon payment yet. It's already May. That describes, or is the majority of the difference between the debt service between the 2 years. And that's, I think Jarf explained that very well in response to you. Next page, again, this is just our kind of a revenue summary. It also breaks out some of our miscellaneous revenues. And you know, we've mentioned that before. So anyways, this is just for May, not year to date, and it's tracking you know, relatively good. Next page is our budget. Sorry, is our year to date by department, which we've all become familiar with. So this is just to jump down to how we summarize it at the very bottom there. You're going to see again this $13.2 million overall expenditure, and that's everything. That's our departmental cost administration running through purification, pump station, sewer, and that also includes obviously taxes paid, the county sewer bill, which we paid one of them, and other contingencies, insurance, and other, which is essentially sent a bill to us, majority from City Hall. So all those costs paid through May of 2025, $13.2 million in comparison to 11.6 million, that was, the amount in prior year. So as I mentioned, I think we're caught up. We have the real run rate of what our expenses are. That 13.2 is gonna include a few anomalies of things that related to 22 and 23, so it's not totally apples to apples there, but we're gonna expect those expenses to kind of ramp up, not be exactly what it was prior year. Next page is our miniature numbers that we put up for our capital spend here. So you can see for May, we've capital expenditures were $910,000, of which we received a $250,000 grant that we mentioned. And again, we're segregating that money. But this is just tracking our 8350 accounts. Any amounts that we spend finance or grant gets tracked in these numbers. So it's not a huge amount in comparison to other years. So, we're tracking at 1.6 million capital spend through May of 2025, going to ramp up. We have a lot of POs in the system. This is going to be significantly higher as we get towards the end of the year. But this is the first part of it, and so we're tracking it, doing pretty well with grants and things of that nature. So that's certainly within expectations, and we're reviewing it closely. Next page is the overtime analysis, budget to actual. As we've mentioned in previous meetings, certainly weather and mainly weather has dictated an increase from prior year. It's still not ridiculously higher, but it is higher, and that's just going to be a subject of our environment. What we include on this page as well is our due from and due to. City of Albany, we're at $1.8 million that is due to us. We'll talk about this a little more at length when discussing some of the forecast piece, but that's good. Obviously, we're at 1.8 at some point, and these numbers have to be settled. In my view, they should be more settled in our favor. But as we're working on certainly the budget, we got a lot of things going on. We have the audit, we have a budget coming up. Arf and I are making sure that we have 100% understanding of the backflow between the city and the water department, to make sure that we're obviously figuring out what we're owed correctly or vice versa. So I'm going to speak about that a little more at length. But anyway, so it's 1.8. We settled today. They pay us $1.8 million, and so it's good to have it in that direction. I mentioned the accounts receivable. Like I said, we do have a few outliers, one of which was with Albany Med and I think OGS that we need to. They ultimately pay us. I don't heard they do this all the time, but anything over 120 days should have. They have our normal penalties that we've set up, but maybe something else. So they're paying the penalties at least, and maybe that's a good thing. And they're not a bad credit; they're going to pay it. So maybe this is a good thing for all of us. Who knows? Next page is the breakdown of our Route 7 accounts, and again, this is trending in absolutely the right direction, significantly higher from prior year. There is we blew a number on the town of Gildenwood. You just noticed that's actually should be 207,000, 3,000 there. They are taking a little bit. That was a monthly figure. It should be 207 for annual. And Bethlehem, they've been taking Bill, you're more astute to this, but they've been taking on a monthly basis, right? I mean, it's obviously the money has gone up, but it's good to see that they are using.
I think they're past their 35.
They passed their initial payment, right?
Yeah, they passed.
So now we're actually billing them the
rest
amount.
is the tiered rates.
Right, so that's a good boom. We want that for the rest of the year at those tiered rates. That's a significant bump for us. Next page, Karen, is just again the breakout of the due from. You'll see this 1.8 million that is due to the water board as of the end of May. And the final page there is our route breakout. We're on our route 1. We're back to route 1 from in comparison to 2024. We're up 11.5%. So that is those are strong revenue numbers, but by any means, as I say, our expense numbers have, I think, caught up to a lot of and we saw a lot of problems, kind of from years past, but again, we also caught up with a lot of things too. We spent more on vehicles, even though, even though it's capitalized, we've caught up from things that we weren't, that made it to the budget. So we're gonna, hopefully that will, when we get into 2026, we'll be able to carve some of those out and be taken care of in the first half of this year. So that is the financial report, monthly through May and cumulative.
Any questions?
Okay. The line of credit, that's the agenda, so that's officially getting approved by a separate session, I believe, I don't know if it's up for Monday officially.
Yes,
Is it-
by the finance.
By the Finance Authority, so this is something that I've been trying to do for quite some time, is attach our actual operating bank line of credit to have to an actual, a revolver, if you will, which has been with B of A, and it's so it's finally come to fruition, and we had several turnarounds of this term sheet, one of which was unacceptable. We turned it back immediately, and then we got something that virtually mirrored the term sheet of Bank of America, actually even a little better with respect to fees, with respect to rates. It's a variable rate based upon something called the sulfur SOFR. It's kind of like kind of like line. It's our version. It's the new line. It's the new line where everybody uses that now. So it's probably going to fall out between 5 or 6% on an annual basis, and it'll be pretty much so the same. We pay about what, 8,000-9,000 per month on the line of credit, so it's going to be about the same. I did have views of trying to increase that, but I didn't want to rock the boat a bit. This was an easy transfer, and that's something that can come along. I think once we have this established, perhaps we can get this to probably should be about a $5 million number. And again, we're going to have $2 million transferred from B of A. That's going to be M&T is going to buy that out when we close. So there'll probably be a few fees that I have to tack on things that in addition to that, but we'll deal with that. So that's good news. We wanted this for a long time. It's attached to our accounts. Had we ever needed it from Bank of America, you have to fill out form. It may 2 or 3 weeks to turn this thing around. This way, it's real time. And if we need the money, it's there immediately. And it's our hometown bank, and there's a lot of positives with that. Audit updates. So it's gone as bad as it, as tough as it went last year. It's going well this year, and we're about at the end of testing. We have some CapEx testing to do. There is a little bit more field work, but as we get into the next couple of weeks, we're going to start doing the MD&A and the actual notes for the financial statements. We'll start writing those up between Joe and myself. We send out a lot of some more detailed things to some of our departments. Joe D for IT, just to give updates of what we've done throughout the year, and so we're going to start pulling that together over the next week or so.
Probably run that by the board members. Review comments on MD&A before we finalize it.
So, but nothing's come up on a testing basis. Nothing's come up on any alarms from the auditors so far. And it's because I say that something happens, but we don't think so. Again, we did the heavy lifting last year, and so this was almost a roll forward, if you will, and now our auditors have a year of experience and know how to interact with us. So it's good news there.
How are you gonna work with the July presentation? Are they gonna do both the finance authority and?
I think we're just gonna have to make them do both. I think originally they can stay over, right?
So they'll be ready.
They yes, yeah. They better be. Well, we'll make sure that happens. Yeah. So, but everything says that we're on track for that. The testing is gonna be a little bit more to go. But nothing's popped out, and it's just knocking out the report, which can take longer than you expect. But overall, we'll be ready. Next piece thought was for the forecast, and I think I had some visions prior to this of and I'll check with you that we would kind of go through and bang out some certain things with it. What we have been doing is a fairly robust, very detailed projection through the rest of this year and out into into 26, but we're still working on some issues with. So the intercompany, if you will, going between the city and us, how to project that is not an easy thing to do, along with making sure we're 100% on our capital expenditures of what we think is going to happen if we make a few decisions. So we're going to table any sort of detail for that for now, do that kind of separate session, make sure we're all on the same page. If and have sort of the right group right now, sort of just kind of Eric and I, we're gonna bring some other people into this to make sure we've, who's been experienced here for so many years that we're not missing anything. So so we're working on it. It's relatively new. I think for procedures going on here, it's not kind of high level like the waterworks was. This is an actual, we're down to the dollar on some of these things. So it's a good thing, but it takes time, and we're balancing the audit and the budget and any number of things with new staff. So we're gonna we'll update you as we get a little further, and we'll have some offline conversations on that.
Yeah, let me add to that too, because we are starting now the 2026 budget development season, so
Yeah.
we're early in on that. There have been, I think we're looking at, our next year is gonna have some dynamic staffing changes, here at the water department, so we wanna incorporate all the thoughts about that.
Yeah.
We're looking at some efficiencies with our operation and maintenance folks. We just wanna make sure we capture all this, because it's a heavy watershed opportunity to really do some rate forecasting in a much more comprehensive manner. And I think the other thing, the city's been fortunate to really kind of get cement the capital, the Albany budget money, they put it to the capital city fund.
Right.
So that's been increased, and I think that's kind of baked in the cake a little bit now. And that might enable us to have a conversation with the city about some of the legacy issues we've had back and forth with admin overhead costs and things that we've been talking about
Yeah.
for 12 years. And of course, at this point, we want to kind of get into the due to, due from. What's the mechanics of how bills are paid, and because that also will impact cash flow and some of the things we want to capture within the rate discussion. So I think that that's really we want to really do a lot more preparation and groundwork before we get into some of the weeds on the numbers.
Yeah, we're about there. We exactly want to make sure we get this right, and make sure we have all input, which we haven't done yet. So we're
And
gonna.
I don't think that's gonna take a long time for us to get
No,
that
we're-
either.
again,
And we haven't changed the administration up in the city, so we can probably have some discussions with the incoming folks in that as well.
But that's about it from my end. If anyone has any questions.
Let's move on, Bill.
Should we talk a bit about rates and where things might be going, or do you want to defer that until we have
I
better?
think we defer it until we all kind of put our heads together on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chairman, may I make a request that we move the agenda so I can do my report? We have an appraiser who wants to make a report to the board in an executive session.
So you're recommending we go on executive?
Yes, and then the basis for that would be for pending litigation.
Have a vote to approve only in legislative session. I'll move second, all in favor?
How long do we think that's soon to stop the recording?
Yes,
How long do we think that's gonna
I
take?
think 10 minutes, 10, 15.
So
Yeah.
you guys wanted to get excused, come back in that time?
Let you know
We'll come
when
back
we're
to do that.
Sure.
I think we just have this back kind of locked in at a time frame.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
thank you for your understanding. Yeah, if you want to grab out the reception, we'll come and get you. Thank you. Are we off?
Plug in. Yeah, we're trying to.
On camera.
And yeah.
Live, I need to, yeah, it's a. We're, it's a. Yeah. Keep a lot.
Okay. That was, yes, they didn't. Go back.
Thank you. On that one, so we're not, a lot. Waiting on this. You are live. Is this on the recording? Oh, yes, it is.
And we're out of executive session.
Oh, we can do that now. Just gonna be.
Well,
We're back in session, and we were in executive session, we took no action. I'd like a motion to, out of executive session and go to the regular board meeting. Second, all in favor? Aye. Right, we're now moving ahead on the regular agenda. Next on the agenda is the commissioner's report.
Yeah, I'm just going, normally, I think in the packet, you had the Excel sheet with the KPIs and everything, but I want to share with you a report that I have, that'll give the Bear senior staff, has a lot of the things condensed, distilled down to statistics. The third slide, that one, yeah. You could actually start the slideshow from there. So what? Yeah, thank you. So what we are looking to do, obviously, we're in the last 6 months of the current administration, likely my tenure. So one of the things is, as the mayor said, we don't want to get senioritis. We're trying to keep the pedal down and finish the things that we had identified in our one-page plan for the 2025. And so for the third quarter, I think Chris alluded to, if you're on the left, these are the priority actions that we really need to be focused on in the third quarter, is to complete our audit, make the CARES submission, and we initiated the 2025, but it should be 2026 budget process. Old age. So the 2026 budget process, and again, I talked about that a little bit earlier. And we're making some organizational changes in how we align our operations with, some of the management and senior staff. As one of the things, and we're looking at efficiency of our operation and maintenance and heating and sewer, how that all aligns with the number of people we got doing certain tasks, et cetera. So that's the things we're working on. We did initiate some discussions and how can we integrate some of our platforms, and we have to give one single item that has on a parcel basis customer service information, as well as any of our O&M stuff. So right now we've got utility cloud, we've got Springbrook, we've got GIS. So how do these things talk a little bit? So we're trying to do some training with some of our key people to help us identify how do we consolidate some of that to make it easier for dispatch and customer service and anyone to access and get the data we need. Beaver Creek, we've been operating that now for quite a few months. It's working pretty well for all the things with some issues that we've had. We have found that there's been some repetitive issues with some of the screens and, getting spare parts and getting repair parts. So we've done a lot of work on that. Steve Gefford and Rebecca, Bill, CHA, the joint venture team, Keller. So we've got some pretty good path forward. We believe we're getting a little bit closer to what some ultimate resolutions would be, but frankly, the facility's been working pretty well. We've had good removals for the bacteriological to this point, and we'll, keep working on that. The lead service replacements, we have the administrative order on consent targeting a number of lead services to replace. We're actually pretty far ahead of target. We'll share a slide with you later on that. One of the things we have identified is working closely with the city engineer on their paving program. That's helped us really leapfrog and get some of the lead service replacements scheduled sooner. And certainly the $12.5 million money that we had to replace 2,500 services is helping that. The real challenge is always going to be on, staffing that engineering side. We did hire a junior engineer, recent graduate from Albany, pretty solid young man. Got a background, part of his background is environmental with sustainability emphasis. And that really is kind of filling a slot that I think in the long term is going to be very beneficial for us.
We're interviewing another candidate, could either be the engineer or the engineering project manager next week. We're gonna see where that goes, and then we're filling, some of the labor, the positions for T&D, which is our water side, the sewer, water treatment plant positions, we're slowly filling them. It appears that, at least anecdotally, I don't want to use the word relaxation, but the expansion of the residency issue to the adjacent counties has widened the pool of candidates. We are seeing increase in number of applicants, so that's very helpful. And on the operations, we're putting liquid line online up in Loudonville that will help us maintain the appropriate pH exiting Loudonville that to help and continue our enhanced corrosion control program to ensure that we have the pH coming out of Loudonville that we need. We talked about fluoridation. I'll talk about that in a second. And I'm going to talk about the fixed leak detection, show you some numbers on that in a little bit. So the priorities are on the right, and I think, we've alluded to those, and we'll talk about them as we go through this discussion. Next one. Next slide. Which one's that? That's that's our water production. Actually, why don't you just go to the one's a graphic is the next slide. So what we really started looking at was what's the impact, we started doing this 3 years ago, what was the impact of COVID on the water production coming out of the plant? Because we obviously had fewer people at work, there's a hybrid work environment, working from home. And you can see in 2021, it dropped off pretty high, pretty heavily. And then with some recovery from 2022 and 23, I really can't explain 2024, I don't know what that is. But it's a real number, that's what went through the plant. But now we're looking at 2025, so I think 2024, I think what that reflected is the Bethlehem and Guilderland contracts were kind of expired, so we weren't selling them as much water. And when you look at that, the drop in volume, that's pretty equivalent to what they normally would have been taking. And now 2025, I think is the new normal. I think if you start looking at that back in 2019, and you look at 2025, we're actually a little higher. I attribute some of that to SUNY Nanotech, and we do have some Bethlehem and Guilderland, but I think that's probably where most of that increase is coming from. Next one.
And that'll continue to increase because there's getting.
Yeah, hopefully knock on wood. And I think again, there's a lot of additional development, infill development in the city. I think there'll be an impact when the Wadsworth moves up from Bravardor and Harriman campus. And that continues to expand up in that neighborhood, so we're pretty happy. This is just a graphic illustration of the revenue and expenses. Revenues at top line, the blue one, expenses on the bottom. I really want our folks this year, as we're looking at the budget, to take a hard look at the expenses. I think there's some things that we can do, and I've been preaching this to our folks for the past 6 years about being more efficient and productive with our repair O&M crews. Are we having an appropriate number of people on a job? I think we need to look at that. I think we can be better. Our guys do great work, but we just need to, how are we utilizing all of our assets most efficiently? So the expense one I want to look at, I think the rise in that, the slope on that one is a little higher than I'd like to see it. So we need to look at that. And then the buildings, I think that's certainly a nice upward arc. When you look at the bottom line on the spreadsheet, you see the rate increases that we've had, over the past couple of years. And I think we're starting to see, as Bill Kahn says, when you do one of those rate increases, it's baked in the cake and it helps legacy to move on forward. So the beginning of compound, which is what we had hoped to see back in 2022, 2023. I think we're finally seeing it now. Next one. Okay, this is the lead numbers, and might be a little tough to see the numbers, but so far, year to date this year, on lead service replacements, we've done 288 replacements, and you look to the left, all of last year we did 373, and year before that was 349. So, we have a target to hit this year, we're gonna be well ahead of it based on what the administrative order of consent was, but I think that number was about what about 600, I think we needed to hit.
Yeah.
It's like around 600, we're gonna be well over that, we're doing about 100 a month. And as we start, the additional paving projects that the city engineer has, that number's gonna pop up pretty good. And again, thank you to the board, you look at the number of grants that were issued for the lead service replacement, 794 grants, which is now higher than that. This was through the end of May. $1.2 million, that's a big number that the board's put out there, and I think it's something you can be really proud of for having the leadership to do that, taking the initiative to do that when it wasn't required. That's a big benefit to our homeowners. Next one. I just wanted to highlight this just for one number. We talked about the investment that we're gonna make on these fixed detectors. Remember Mike Rudy came in earlier this year and talked about the different form of leak detection. So we started putting these detectors in a number of sensors. And when I put this number in May, we had 362 sensors on our 3,547 hydrants. And so we had almost 200,000 linear feet of water main under surveillance. We had detected 34 leaks. And when you look at just above that, the loggers that we would put out overnight, it's a much more tedious process. So we tested 124, we tested 95,000 feet, and we found 8 leaks. And you just look at, just a leak in number of mains that are being monitored and the leaks detected. So right now we have the challenge, we're trying to get lead services replaced, and at the same time, we're trying to get the leaks fixed. We're running out of bodies, so what's the priority? Well, the priority is both. So how do we find a way to do that without going crazy, increasing scale? So I just wanted to share that. I think it's an interesting statistic, and it shows the benefits of the advanced technology. And we're gonna be looking to put more in. In fact, I didn't update the slide. I think we're well over 400 on the sensors that are deployed, over 200,000 feet, and we're up to 40 some leaks detected. Next one. This is just our interim report, which is what it is. I think certainly looking back 10 years from where we are now, that number would be a whole lot higher. And obviously that it hits us in so many better ways with a reduction in lost work days. We're not having extra shifts. It's obviously it's safe for employees, healthier employees. They're not missing time. They're able to do things for their families when they go home because they're not injured. So these are positive numbers for us. Next one. And so we started putting this up here about this is the days since the last lost time accident in the different units that we have in the water department. And we would expect to see lower numbers for T&D and sewer and pump stations, but probably pretty much the sewer and T&D, because frankly, that's the guys that have more risk. They're doing the things tests that are more dangerous. So we want to put this up there because frankly, it kind of gets guys thinking about, and gals thinking about what is, how are we doing and how do we compare with the other folks? So it's kind of a healthy competition. It's not that we're telling people, hey, if you get hurt, we want you to say something, but on the other hand, it gets you maybe be more aware of your situation and so you don't get hurt. So we're just gonna keep posting this. Sarah updates in the middle of every month, so we'll be updating it. We'll have the next month, we'll have a new report. I'm not sure there's a whole lot else to show here. Next one, this is just C-click fixes. We don't get as many C-click fixes as DGS does, but our dispatch folks really want to stay on top of that to get these things closed. And you see we've closed 35 out of 36 sinkholes. And the sewers and drainage take a little more time because a lot of those are private laterals that we have to deal with. That's why the days to close average. That's pretty good days to close. So most of the ones we're seeing in some other places are like, that would be 3.8 months. We're talking 3.8 days, so we're pretty happy with those. Next one. And again, these are just where we are in some of the projects like construction. There's really not much else to see in these. Frankly, we share it with the other departments because they're kind of interested in how the work we're doing may affect their operations, particularly DGS, and it gives the mayor's office and their neighborhood specialists an idea of where these projects are. So you can exit out of this. The other ones are just other projects that we have that Bill's going to talk to when he gives us a report. So we can exit out of PowerPoint. So the other, I think our lab director asked me to bring to the board, can we think of some incentives for customers that participate in lead sampling? Like right now, I think we're about what, Bill, about 80 or so samples that we take every 6 months, something like that.
Yes, well, our regulatory requirement is 60, so this is for the, our compliance sampling, which has to be single family, with lead services, tier 1 in the EPA's, um, realm. And we need to use the same ones over again each sampling period unless they've had their lead service line replaced. So you're asking people to volunteer, but you're also asking them to continue to volunteer. And we're doing this now every 6 months, so, they get a kit and they need to, collect a sample and fill out a form and, we deliver the, kit and it gets picked back up and, so sometimes people don't want to repeat, or sometimes the property owner or the people change, and so we have to keep recruiting people. And when we recruit people, now if this is a continuing basis, we want them to know, hey, we want you to be participating in this on an ongoing basis.
So we're trying to get a higher backlog and list of folks to engage in the testing program, because one, services are gonna be replaced at some point when people find out what their numbers are. And then secondly, as Bill points out, folks drop out and things of this nature. So this is what determines our action levels and compliance levels. As Bill pointed out, right now, we do 60 a year. That's population driven. If and when we certify or identify that the population is over 100,000.
Yeah, when the official census is.
When the official census right now, we're looking at that could be over 100,000. That will elevate the number of samples that we are required to take. So lab director suggested, hey, can we look at some incentive for these folks that engage in this? Yeah, they're getting their samples water analyzed for lead, but can we give them something else to look at? And so one of the items can be, do we give them, besides the water department plastic bottle, do we give them potentially some credit on a water bill? So if they enroll in the program and they do a sample, when they get their water bills, we could give them a 10% off, 10% of a number or a dollar amount. People use different amounts of water, so the dollar amount may not be the best way to look at it, so you want to do a percentage. So if we had 100, say take 100, and the average water bill is what, $750. So do the math, we're talking about like 75,000, 10% 7,500. That's not going to kill our revenue number. So it's something we just want to put that in front of the board. And then if the board is comfortable with that kind of a concept or has another suggestion as an incentive, if you could share that with us, so we can put together a little kind of a paragraph white paper on putting something before the board, so a formal resolution at the July meeting. Any thoughts on that?
I like it. I think it's.
Is a credit on a water bill, sewer bill sound like a? Yeah, I don't know what else we would really do, and that's something that's tangible, so.
Is the regulatory requirement that they need to be in all of our different zones? I mean,
We spread them out a little bit, Bill. I think, we're gonna find more lead pipes in certain areas that are older parts of the city, but we do try to spread it around a little bit for our own edification, where it's telling us the effectiveness of our corrosion control.
Yeah, some parts of the city don't have many lead services.
So the answer is no, we're not required, but we still try to get some distribution of samples by neighborhood or ward.
Right.
And again, that ties into the equity agenda that we're committed to. So that's the other issue with that. So if it seems like that might be an appropriate option to look at a financial incentive, we'll work with Chris and our roof, and we'll put together a package to get in front of you well in advance of the next meeting. If you get any feedback, we can formalize it.
I think that's nice. Other organizations do it.
Well, I'll get back to her and tell her that looks like it's pretty favorable. 64 Colvin easement. Let me just skip over and then I'll let Bill do the 64 Colvin and then Bill can do all the construction and grant stuff. On the Lincoln Park Morning Guard, we talked about that. We had a pre-construction conference a little bit ago. We thought we would be starting that project about now. And then it had a deadline date of substantial completion by the end of October. And the So the contractor said, hey, we'd really rather wait till the end of July to start it because they have a delivery time for the outdoor classroom, we'll get the pre-engineered buildings and stuff like that. It did not change the end date of their schedule. The end date is still substantial completion by the end of October, which aligns with what we had in the contract documents and certainly aligns with our goal to get this thing done this construction season. So you'll probably start seeing some mobilization down at the Lincoln Park Learning Garden towards the end of July. The other benefit of that is that we won't be overlapping all the activity going down on the other side of the road down at the pool. They're finishing up the pool to have that open on July 5th. I was actually out there yesterday. And everybody was thanking us for the alcohol water going into the pool, and we were thanking them for keeping the alcohol water in the pool, not leaking through the bottom of the pool, so. So it looks really nice. I think if we get a chance to get out and take a look at it, I think the city can be very proud of that project when it's done. It's awesome looking, so it'll be really good. But they'll be pretty much out of the way when we start mobilizing to do the other side of Martin Luther King Boulevard. So I think we'll be in good shape on that. On the Ford Nation project, Ben answered one of the questions that was raised earlier. The reason that we haven't had a lot of outreach and communication is we were waiting for the formal grant contract to be signed by everyone in the state. We just got that this week, so that'll trigger us to work with Steve and start doing our outreach and communication and all the things that, you know, some of the frequently asked questions that we heard earlier, we can put that together in a package and get that information out now that we've got the grant agreement and we can incur costs and move forward with it. So, film at 11 on that one. Bill.
We're going closer to the board here. So I think everybody may have gotten my multiple page listing, just, you know, keeping track of, what do we have with short-term finance, long-term finances and grants and so forth, and kind of all the projects fall underneath that. We're still using some money from the bonds of 2021, we can finish up, some more under that. There's still a couple million, I think, Chris was pointing out, there's some, the 2,400,000 has been drawn down.
Section 2, yeah.
So it's essentially more like 2 now. The drinking water 18523, that's a short-term financing that we got an extension of the maturity. Most of that work should be all finished up this year. We're finishing it, some of the work with the lime, liquid lime. And some of that's also being financed by the drinking water state revolving fund 18903. So that 18903 is also what we're doing, our aeration building. That aeration building has been moving along. There's a rehab of concrete surfaces and coating systems. I think we had some change order proposals in regard to that, because of course when you're sandblasting and doing concrete rehab and coating, there's a little uncertainty. So we're moving ahead with that, plus the line feed building and the maintenance building. We've awarded contracts and that's proceeding. The foundations have been done by AMZ and that's proceeding. The equipment that was purchased from Merriman is going to be scheduled to arrive. So the concept was we put the foundation for the tanks in. We put the tanks in before we put the building on top of it. So a little bit easier because these are big tanks, so it would be hard to get them into the building if the building went first. So we still haven't gotten the final contract signing with the building contract, ClearSpan, but Rebecca's working on that. But we have a lot of commitments so far. Out of $6 million for 18903, we've got 5.5 pretty much already committed under various contracts. And we're anticipating we're going to have to have an amendment to that financing because DOH really was requiring us to do everything that we had scoped out under that financing, and we still have some other work to do. So we'll have CPL do the design on on those additional aspects so that we can get a good estimate, so we can determine what additional financing is gonna be needed. On our dam projects, the Basic Creek Reservoir and Rensselaer Lake, we're gonna be applying for grant money. We haven't gotten into project financing yet because we're waiting. Schnapp's been finishing up the design work. We've seen 90% plans. I mean, Basic Creek, we anticipate getting 90% plans for Rensselaer Lake in a couple of months. And we'll be reapplying for WQIP grant money through DEC, and we'll be reapplying for RIA money through the revolving fund. We were denied both of those the last time, but we'll try again.
Just as an aside, and I want to talk to Mayor, she wanted to go back, and again, rekindle the conversation with DEC, with the new commissioner, about the potential to engage with us on Rensselaer Lake one way or another, either through support or some other engagement as far as responsibility for that. So that's you know, the candle might have a 10th flame, but it's still lit. So.
Yeah, at the top of page 2, drinking water 19157 is sort of a continuation of work we're gonna do with filters and filter plants, and we don't have a project financing, we're kind of waiting, we'll be reapplying for the grants on that. We wanted to finish up some work with the water treatment plant that we're doing now, and hold off on that a little while longer. The drinking water 19554 for the other things, we told the EFC we wanted to be proceeding with that, but we're updating the engineer's report. So that's still a little ways off before we might get into closing on short-term financing. But that right now, that would just be a market rate financing, and we're talking about $7.6 million for that. You know, one of the reasons for looking at this, even though the finance authorities, the folks that entered into these agreements, all of these new debt things play into what we need to do with the rates. So that would be we'll still apply for WIA in this round to see if we can get some money, but these water main projects don't tend to score very ahead of the rating system with the drinking water revolving fund. The drinking water revolving fund 19456, which is our lead service replacement, $12.8 million, of which $9 million is federal bill grant money, and 3.8 is financing. But New York State is will give us a grant to cover that $3.8 million. So essentially, that's all grant money. But even though it's grant money, I know Chris wants to say a little bit more detail, because there still is a cash flow problem if we have to incur some costs, and even though some of our money from EFC is supposed to be on cost incurred, that's not always the quickest to get that money. So it creates a little bit of short-term cash flow problems, which is of course why we've been using a line of credit. So if you didn't necessarily have to go into the fidelity accounts for that, some of that bridging of cash flow problems. 19609 at the bottom of page 2 is lead service inventory. We're sort of using that together with lead service fund replacement. That's some initial digging and works out to see if we've got lead services. And that's $2 million of grant money. On page 3, fluoridation grant, we just got executed $1 million fluoridation grant, so we can proceed. We have some contracts to award from general construction and electrical construction, and we've got some additional engineering costs to be approved by the board. That's sort of what we have on the drinking water side. On the clean water side, the sewer side, We've got our long-term control plan, things, we're already into long-term financing with our first tranche of that, and, we've also closed on the second tranche and the beaver. So. We're just trying to draw down the final disbursements on those, and, we should be getting, about $1 million or so of additional disbursements. For work that's already been done. 1404 is the ongoing part. Most of that work is from things going on in Cohoes and Troy. We have to pay off 50% of or our share of those costs. That's looking like costs are coming in less than originally budgeted, so that's sort of an interesting thing, but so we might end up borrowing less money on that tranche, hopefully. And our learning garden, of course, that's proceeding. Luis is already proceeding, and we do have something we're going to some construction phase services, the engineering. Academy Road on page 4, this 1700 and short-term financing. There's a lot of different grant components to that. There's some additional work that we're proposing to do on Hackett Boulevard. The board's seen that before and done secret determination and they're going to that. So CHA has a task force proposal to do for that. We're just about done with Luisi's contract. So that's done. EFC and DC and most have gone out to see it, and everybody's pretty pleased with how that's been. But that's most of that's covered with grant money, and we'll be still working. We expect to get some design done this year and get some actual construction on that Hackett corner in 2026. And the city's been wanting us to get that done so they can then get into doing some paving and sidewalk replacements. Beaver Creek Tie Gate, the 1800 is just about completed. We just had Kelly doing some repair work at the structure of the old dam where the old tie gates were located. And
The new gates are in.
oh, the gates have been in for a while, and they've been working, fixing some things that were found that need to be built in the tunnel between the dam, which is at Green and Brunswick Street, and the outfall. So
Yeah, if
that's,
you drive down there now, you see there's a altered traffic pattern, they always got that fence and stuff, that's where we're working on.
yeah, and I worked with Brett Williams and Court Council, and because where the tie gates is city right away. So we worked out an agreement, easement agreement with you all, because they've been kind of using that for parking trucks and things. So we've worked out that there will be a formal agreement in regard to you all's use of that in the future, but we're going to have an area that's going to be striped no parking for our access to those gates and for patches at that location. So no board involvement in that, but we'll have.
Is you all responding?
You all, we're talking with attorneys from Phoenix, Arizona, because they're a big corporation. But the local people want as much flexibility as possible, because they like to be able to, they have these different parcels, but and they want to be able to have some circulation better, so they don't have to be pulling out on Broadway to move some of their stock on. So Beaver Creek, yeah, so the work right now is kind of being coordinated with Giffen and the traffic around that location. 1900 is grant money that we have to offset some costs for sewer lining. And we're trying to use that up with this national water main road thing we have going on right now. Thurlow Terrace, we're still working on getting short-term financing closing. We've been That has some bipartisan infrastructure money involved in it, so. We're trying to get that done. EFC wants us to close on that by September. And then we'll be moving forward. Our sewer collection system. We haven't closed on that, short-term financing, that also has a September date because there's. $8 million of bipartisan infrastructure money, grant money associated with that. So we think we have all of our paperwork in with EFC and we'll just. They go to the loan committee in July for September closing. And the Gilroy diversion will kind of have off moving forward with that project. North Hawk Street. We just had a resubmission of a feasibility study to try to get that grant executed. But the design is pretty much done, and we should be able to get into the bidding of that soon. And we've got a couple of engineering planning grants that we're pretty much done with, and we're closing out. Space in the future, we'll be looking to put something into intended use plan for consuming rehabilitation. But we're not ready to do that yet, so. I guess the biggest questions for the board are really gonna be what to do about the dams if we don't get any grant money and we have to proceed with these as market rate financings, you really see that's a lot of your debt to be taken on.
And we keep pushing that, keep taking that game down the road a little bit of something, we gotta pull the trigger on those barrels.
We really don't want to necessarily take them both at the same time frame. We're kind of thinking that might mean we do insulate first because that's a bigger liability and Basic Creek second. But once we have the designs all sent to DEC, I guess we'll be waiting for DEC's review approval and permitting.
And I think also to Bill's point, we're better positioned to potentially get some grant on that because the engineering certifications are updated. We just completed the city has to approve the county hazard mitigation plan, which is in process. So that would be more boxes to check on the potential for some help. So he's looking at that.
When do you think you might hear on the grants?
No.
Well, it's a governor's announcement at the end of the year.
So. Just want to take a second, when you look at Bill's report, I keep looking at this and we were talking about it, I mentioned this earlier, with one of our operations, we have worked with Bill since 1986. And I kept thinking, when Bill and I first got here, if we had a board meeting and talked about a capital update, it would look like this. You know, we're doing some sewer lining and maybe a detention project. That's what it would have looked like. We would not have taken, the amount of time to explain to the board and the public the efforts that were made. We wouldn't have this without Bill Sempro, period. And so I just want to publicly acknowledge, and again for the board, that, the contribution that Bill makes to this department, to the city is priceless.
Right.
And we won't get anything done to this extent without him. So once again, my partner, thank you. Great job.
Well, it takes a village to do this.
Yeah, but
It takes a commander.
question, Colvin, 64 Colvin.
Oh, yeah,
That's next.
What's up?
yeah, there's two big apartment
Yes.
complexes
Right,
and each of them involve some water main extensions that were being done by the developer, pieces of water main that were gonna be turned over to the water board in easements. So, once the water mains have been tested, then and approved, then we get the easements from the property owners. So so those will be coming up, because those apartments are going up.
pretty fast, yeah. Is that gonna affect the water pressure again? It's got that problem years ago.
No, it won't affect the water pressure. And yeah, these places also have some of their own fire pumps and things in regard to how they, they set up their fire protection. And I know they, I think one of them is, we have the zone right in that neighborhood, so, one is in the boosted zone and one is in the not boosted zone, the way it comes, but, yeah, they have to address, when you have these higher buildings, they have to sometimes put in booster pumps to get pressures of upper floors. But we don't have any problem with low pressures.
Have they consulted you about the project completion or any of the problems that they foresee?
Well, we go through a site plan review process with those, and then we go through a permitting process when they're actually making the connections. So we get our input on these, and we also have to work with the Department of Health and with the Department of Environmental Conservation. There have to be sewer extension approvals. So we have a little bit more work on these site plan reviews than some of the other departments, because for any of our extensions, we have to work with DEC and BOH. Their approvals, and they want to make sure they do that. And so we have capacity, and engineers reports are required from the developers and engineers. So, but that over the quarter is really fun to see a lot of
Yes.
things.
The other thing, towards the end of the project, also, when the developer finishes construction, they apply for a temporary CO. And there are conditions that are set up, so they may get a temporary CO. And then before a final certificate of occupancy is issued, all the departments have to sign off. So we get a last look. Has every condition that we've been put in with site plan approval, permit approval, have they all been satisfied? Did they put a water meter in? Did they set up an account? Until all of that is done, we do not sign off on the project. So I think there's ample checks and balances on it to move forward with.
And some of those processes have been implemented over the last year or two, which are much better. Like some of these things like permanent easements, that sometimes got lost in the shuffle of certificate of occupancies get done, and then permanent easements haven't been recorded with the county clerk, and we.
And those buildings are going up fast.
Yeah.
Does the mayor have the next step to talk to DEC?
I'm sorry.
Does the mayor have the next step to talk to DEC?
Yeah, they have, as you know, they got a new commissioner that's been appointed, so the mayor, does it go anywhere? Who knows? They've got, their own challenges within EDC with funding and stuff, but neighborhoods they ask, we're gonna keep pushing. Even if we can't get, we'd like to have somebody else be responsible for that entire property out there, because it does serve more than the city of Albany, but if we could kind of get some support in the main part from the state directly, even if it's for some other program, that would be helpful as well. So it's a big lift for us.
Anything else? Any questions?
Sure, just one thing I want to mention, Bill, along with what you were saying, anytime one of these short-term notes goes long-term, it requires a debt reserve. So by way of example, the Beaver Creek O2 went long-term this year, $20 million. We had to come up with about $1.2 million that we didn't anticipate. In 25 that came out of our coffers. So we just need to be cognizant of that timing when things start going long-term for the rest of the year in 26, that we're aware of what that reserve is.
Yeah, actually, that reserve was also borrowed as part of that borrowing, so it didn't actually come out of our accounts, but.
Yeah, but the part of
became
that.
part of
For the claims.
Yeah,
part of the debt, future debt amortization.
Right.
And that's true of the market rate and the subsidized rate.
Right.
Well, the closings we've had on these hardship money, like on their sewer, have 0% financing. They haven't required a debt service reserve fund on those. Those are usually to figure the amortization schedule, which is just provide the principal by the 30-year term, and go ahead. So that's the best kind of finance.
So you
All right, Laura, you're up.
Sure, so my last bullet point is, it informs the first resolution. So I don't know if you want me to speak about it then, or I could do it now, I mean, but basically it's another amendment to our procurement policy, which would implement federal procurement requirements under Title 40 of the Code of Federal Regulations, specific to architectural and engineering services. Okay, so
Let's do that when we
you
get.
could do that later, yeah, yeah.
All right. Steve?
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, so in May, I'm gonna get this.
Yeah.
Thank you. So in May, we saw some, it's kind of a tough month where, you know, I'm not exactly sure the reasons for it, why we saw such a big dip. Our postings and our communications, our outbound stuff, was on par. But, you can see the engagement level seems to just kind of start to go down. However, where we saw a big jump was more video, right? So, and I've been trying to incorporate that. It's takes a little bit more time, but we can, you know, do it. So I'm trying to figure out ways to just streamline that just a little bit more. But as you can see, you know, our increases pump up quite a bit. And I mean, we've got people watching. This is over a month on, you know, different platforms, 5 hours and 22 minutes. You know, that's like,
So that's what my wife has been doing.
yeah, right. So, you know, it's good. People are still seeing it. It's not that I think it's just that the shift online is just starting to change. I would love it if we could get a TikTok account, because that's the fastest growing social media platform that's out there, but government is not allowed to have one. So we are relegated to Facebook and Instagram for that style of media when it comes to social media. Okay, so our top reel, no wipes in the pipes, trying to save Beaver Creek as much as we possibly can from all of the wipes coming through. We have these massive rain events. It takes an awful lot of manpower to clean these things out. So please don't throw anything but toilet paper down the toilet. So we're getting a lot of traction. And then I did another, this you'll see next month, but a little preview. I started to get a little cheeky, no pun intended, with that. But I created a small little cartoon, threw it up there on Reddit and some of our other platforms, and the engagement level is just through the roof. I've not seen anything like, we're talking like numbers around 50,000 views. So we're starting to get that message out. Bill, I'm sure you'll be thankful for that. So hopefully we're gonna start to see more. The water quality report, which I will have copies for everybody, sorry I didn't bring those in today, has dropped, it's here. So this coming July and into August, I'm gonna be doing kind of an on the road sort of thing through the Albany Public Libraries. And we're gonna start talking about that, plus I'll be at some of the neighborhood association meetings talking about the water quality report. So that's the water part, right? So Joe was in Philly, and they have this really cool way that their communications people are engaging with the public, and it's a water bar. So I got ourselves a little bar, got a big huge jug of water, and we're gonna bring the water quality report. We're gonna serve free water to people, talk about water, talk about the things that we're doing, engage with the public. So I'm gonna be in front of all of the libraries starting in July. I think it's the 7th or 8th, something like that, and then that's gonna be every week with a rain date until the middle of August timeframe.
I think the one thing we can do with that too, I've noticed it, again, not to use my second city, but they actually do one day a week, one day every 2 weeks of City Hall.
Okay.
Right in City Hall,
Yeah.
like in the rotunda would be there, so it's kind of cool thing to do.
Yeah, easily add that in. So I'm gonna try to continue to reboot the Proud program, water quality report distribution. Joe, we gotta talk about that. I've got the list of things,
Yeah.
of places to go. The no wipes in the pipes, talked about that. CIPP video,
That's pipeline.
yeah, we're gonna start working on that. Kurt's got those projects really coming up in July, so that'll be a good time for me to get out there and start to really feature what those are. And
The water wall is continuing to move along. It's slow. It seems that my timeline for us to do something in the fall might have been a little aggressive. It looks like we're gonna probably have to kick this can to maybe Earth Day or Tulip Fest next year or something like
Which
that.
would be a good signature event. to
Agreed.
have it there.
Yeah. But you know, Jay's been great through all of this and the state of sustainability crew, and we're really getting some good excitement around the whole project and trying to bring schools and city together and community. And so we're really looking forward to it, but it's just gonna be a little further out than we thought. One of our reels to note was our kickball team, 2 hours and 46 minutes, 900 views, that's pretty good. So we have a kickball tournament that goes on amongst the departments, and we were the defending champions. Unfortunately, we fell a little short this year, so we're gonna try to reclaim that back. I'll tell you, if the rec department doesn't protect the trophy a little too much, I know where that lives. So, you know, maybe we'll go in style someday, I don't know.
The hardest part of that is when we won the trophy last year, was the amount of trash talking I did at the mayor's senior staff meeting against my brother Jonathan Jones, the Recreation Department Commissioner. So this year, I ate my and had to publicly bow to him at a mayor's senior staff meeting.
Yeah.
For retaking the trophy.
Yeah.
Where do you play?
They played at the old St. Rose Fields over there, Hoffman, yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
so that's where they had it. So that's in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions or anything like that?
I have a comment.
Sure, go ahead.
I saw this and the water quality report was done and it's on the webpage.
Yes.
And I haven't been looking at the water department webpage much. What Steve has done, I urge you to look at this thing. It is fabulous. It's just terrific. And you can go, there's a place where you can go click and you can see the whole water quality report. That also is, I mean, it was terrific last year, but it's even better this year.
Thanks.
So I'm really, I spent all yesterday afternoon looking at that stuff. It was terrific.
Well, thanks very much, Joe.
Yeah.
One of the things too that we've been kicking around is, we have, a lot of times we have these emergency, water main breaks that we wind up shutting water off to a neighborhood. In some cases, that's a lot of folks, so we've been thinking about our version of Mr. Dingling, which we would have actually a portable water truck, water department truck, that we would bring out to a main break. Or we could bring it to a Tulip Fest, we could bring it to an event, so it's the water bar engagement, much large, so like right now, if we get a water main break in the middle of the night, we'll bring out cases of water. You know, and some people can't get out, the older people that don't have as much mobility. So this gives us a chance to maybe do that on a larger scale, but there's a cost associated with that, so. That's something that, again, gets part of the budget process. Do we lease something? Do we buy something? Do we get a trail behind? Do we get a little more of a truck? So something to think about, to again, broaden our customer service.
Good idea. And under new business, we have, the report on the stewardship.
Yeah, I think Amy put this in the package. This is something that she's required to put out every year as part of having that certification for the for stewards for the council. That actually has some benefit to us. So this is just a report that's circulated, and I think to get posted here, and I forget how that works, but it is a public report. And that's required every year. She does a good job. Her and Alex actually put this together, do a great job with it.
All right, if there are no other comments or questions, let's go to the resolutions. Resolution 2538. Now therefore, the water board amends the procurement policy as set forth in Appendix A. Ross, you're on.
so Appendix A is a red line version of the procurement policy, which really sets forth another section for compliance with the federal regulation that I just spoke about. And again, it's specific to architectural and engineering procurement of those services. We largely follow it, but now it's really spelled out for any time we are. It's a bit robust, but this is something that EFC, the Environmental Facilities Corporation, requires us to sign and make sure that we are doing.
So does that mean our language in the resolution will change instead of lowest responsible bidder?
No, because again, so architectural and,
It's not really a bid.
yeah, yeah, it's a professional service, so.
It's just qualification-based selection
Correct.
is essentially what it is.
And
which is
making
what
sure
we do.
you're publicly soliciting, which we already do that too, so, yep. But this really just sort of calls out that specific provisions for when we are signing that certification for EFC, we say, oh, yes, in our procurement policies, yeah.
Any questions, comments? No? Can I have a motion to approve the change? So move, second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries, thank you. Resolution 2539. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board authorizes the Department of Water and Water Supply to grant access to and to provide Medway Grapeville Fire Company with a key to the fire hydrant as defined within this resolution, subject to the following conditions. 1, use of or access to the fire hydrant granted herein shall be limited to use by the Midway Grapeville Fire Company for emergencies only, unless otherwise consented to in writing by the Albany Water Board. The fire hydrant shall not be used for access for routine fillings, road work, training, or any other miscellaneous use. The Midway Grapevine Fire Company shall contract dispatch prior to each and every use. 4, nothing herein shall limit or restrict the Albany Water Board or its agents' use of access to the fire hydrant at any time. And 5, the Albany Water Board may restrict, suspend, or revoke use or access the fire department if the Midway Grapeville Fire Company fails to comply with any of the terms or conditions set forth within. Any comments?
Yeah, just something that just, they're on the transmission main, it's just.
Did you write that, Laura?
I did.
Yeah, you're getting to be a good lawyer, they're getting longer and longer.
This would be a use of a hydrant in, by Quinlan's Hollow, on the raw water transmission main.
So do we just give them the resolution and say this is what you've agreed to?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, I thought about maybe making a license agreement, but I think at this point, you know, if we'll give access and if they can't comply or don't comply, yeah. It's a resolution.
Can I have a motion to approve? Second, all in favor? Aye. Carries. Resolution 2540. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board authorizes payment to Great Point LLC in the amount of $2,500 for quarterly investment advisory services for the period 4/1/2025 to 6/30/2025, annexed here to Appendix 7. And they need to debate this. Can I have a motion to approve? I move second. All in favor? Aye. Resolution 2541.
Hey, Karen, they're gonna be at the Albany Water Board, end of the Sable. September.
2541. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water. Hereby awards the liquid line system equipment purchase to the lowest responsible bidder, Gallo Construction Inc. Waterville, New York, for a contract amount of $1,242,300. And hereby authorizes the chairman to execute all necessary documents to enter into the contract with Gallo Construction.
That's. Is that the wrong,
That's something done right there. That's the wrong one.
is that, should say fluoridation?
Which one are you on, or 2541? That go all the way to top. I'll say something to you.
The liquid line,
2041.
liquid line equipment should be fluoridation.
Yeah, that's a typo.
Good cap.
Yep.
Fluoridation.
Should be the- It should just, you should just copy that.
I'll be, please. Is that your own chief?
You want to add anything else other than the correction? No, we're all set. Can I have a motion to approve? We'll move, second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, motion carries.
Since that was about fluoridation, could you just repeat the resolution so I can understand it? I didn't follow because I was confused by its title.
Sure.
I can't see.
I'll give you a copy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Resolution 2542. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board hereby awards the Fluoride filtration plant water filtration project, water fluoridation project electrical to the lowest responsible bidder, Spring Electric of Averill Park, New York, for a contract amount of $90,000, and hereby authorizes the chairman to execute all necessary documents to enter into the contract with Spring Electric Inc. Any additional comments? I have a motion to approve. We'll move, second, all in favor? Aye, thank you. Resolution 2543. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board hereby authorizes the award of the tree maintenance and emergency work services to the lowest responsible bidder, JB Tree Specialists LLC of New Baltimore, New York, at the rate set forth in bid dated May 20, 2025, and hereby authorizes the chairman to execute all necessary documents to enter into the contract with JB Tree Specialists LLC in the form of substantially similar to the draft contract annexed here to an Appendix A. You'll be glad we're going ahead with this.
How much was it?
Well, it's kind of a
Yeah.
unit price. It's tough to say how much work is gonna be required. Because it could be cutting a branch off the pipeline. It's very specialized work. So when you look at their contract in the bid sheets,
Yeah.
it's like 27 different unit price items that they would be looking to do.
Right,
So we could
Yeah.
actually put that, if you want to take a look at it, we could actually share that bid if we have not done that. So put that
Yeah.
on the member site.
you know what we did was so the contract itself is Appendix A, and then the actually had the bid prices right in there, so we could pull
Yeah.
those up. But that's usually in the packet already.
So it's in the packet, and again, you can see the crazy way that they put these
Yes.
prices together, but it covers every kind of potential opportunity we would need to work with these guys. And the bid sheets were like this for each one of those proposals. I think we had three folks propose. We've each worked with these guys in the past, and they provide the best service for the variety of needs that we would have, so.
We identify independent of the forest timbering.
Yes,
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yes.
yeah,
I may have a motion to approve. We'll move, second. All in favor? No. Carry, thank you. Resolution 2544. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board hereby authorizes the task order dated November 18, 2024, prepared by CHA Consulting Inc. for the division of design and construction related engineering services for the fluoridation project in the amount of $307,590.
That's not to exceed, not to exceed total liver use where we need the unit price base. So I think a couple of the elements might be one, some, but the construction based services are on an hourly basis when needed.
Yeah, I think we had previously approved a certain portion of that. You want to bring up the public setting? You want to scroll to yeah, I think we're the intention was to do the optional service part as part of this. Is that how we have this? We, This may have gotten, incorrect. We were gonna be, we had previously authorized 307 at a previous board meeting.
Reasons were authorized, yeah.
We wanted to authorize the 64,000 optional services at this point, which includes construction phase.
Okay. All right, well,
We need
Can
to
we make-
modify that.
yeah, we'll modify that before it gets signed, but do we want to read it to be correct so we can get a board vote?
So it's
Okay.
gonna say for the provision of optional services. Right, and it's gonna be for the dollar amount for that appendix A,
Okay,
because the optional services are specifically broken out.
yeah,
So it's $64,000, I think it was.
Right.
Well, it's double checking, yes. It's gonna be for the provision of optional services, optional services. Construction phase. And we need to tweak that, we're trying to do that, and it's just tough.
yeah.
Good. They may have motion to approve. You, second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Resolution 2545. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board authorizes task order dated June 23, 2025, prepared by CHA Consulting for the provisions of the engineering design services for the Hackett Boulevard CSO abatement and flood mitigation program in the amount of $297,500. Bill
Yeah.
talked about this earlier.
Yeah, so this is where the additional work on Happy Boulevard, it also includes, CHA has two subcontractors that are DPEs that, for survey and for soil boring, so. And they've included, as part of their proposal, EFC's required language. So that's, that'll be covering a stretch of Hackett from Holland to Forest Avenue. Is, now the proposal,
When will it be done?
well, they'll do the design this year and then they'll go out to build, so construction will be next construction season.
Any questions? Have the motion to approve, remove, seconds, all in favor? Aye. Carry. We're almost there. Resolution 2546. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board authorizes the task order dated June 16, 2025, prepared by CHA Consulting for the provisions of the construction engineering support services for the Lincoln Park Learning Garden project in the amount of $164,500.
Yeah, so that's for construction phase services, including with their sub-consultant Hamlin that did the architectural. So that we've got some grant funding from DEC and Parks for the project and some participation in Albany Water Board funds.
So I'm glad this is gonna get done. Me too. Yeah, it's been a long time. May I have a motion to approve? Second, all in favor? Aye. You're a good team. Resolution 2547. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board authorizes the task order dated June 23rd, 2025, prepared by CHA Consulting Inc. for the provisions of engineering support for review and coordination of the North Hawk stormwater improvement projects in the amount of $8,000.
Yeah, the CHA was asked to help us to get this feasibility study squared away with EFC so we can get that grant executed.
Any questions? May I have a motion to approve? Second, all in favor? Resolution 2548. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board approve change order number 2 annexed here to Appendix A to the Beaver Creek Flow Management and Inflow Reduction Project of William J. Keller and Sons Construction Corporation, increasing the contract amount to $113,003.84. The new contract value was $98,003.84. There is no change to the original contract completion date of November 1st, 2025.
And that's, yeah, that's for rehabilitation of that's for rehabilitation of the tunnel.
Yeah. Any questions? Have a motion to approve? Move, second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Two more. 2549. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board approve change order AB-G-03 and Tier 2 as Appendix A to the Fieldbush WFP aeration room renovation with Gallo Construction Corporation, increasing the contract amount to $187,350.84. The new contract value was $3,022,130.84. There's no change in the original contract completion date of October 23rd, 2025.
And that's it right here, the copy we have and photos.
I think the change order explained it pretty well. Yeah. Have a motion to approve, so move, second, all in favor? Aye. Resolution 2550. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board hereby approves change order LMG-02 and Tier 2 as Appendix A to the Fieldbush WFP line and maintenance building contract, general contract with AMG Construction Services, Inc., increasing the amount $138,561.05. New contract value is $1,179,381.41. There's no change to the original contract completion date, January 17th, 2026. Bill, want to say anything about this?
Yeah, we had some additional foundation work, was some, unforeseen need to, do some extra work over the top of the drain line coming from the clear well.
I have a motion to approve. I'll move. Second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
But I forgot to bring something up on the new business. One of the things that we found out, we've been, through the summer, we've got an intern from, RIT working with us in engineering, really solid guy. We've got another intern working with Pete Patel in inventory. And we've got, some of these people, but for the people that are in the office, we're out of space. I mean, we're really challenged with space. I wanted, Steve and I talked about maybe trying to get the marketing intern, communications intern to work with Steve, because we have so many things we're trying to do on the outreach part. Have no place for that person to sit, so we're gonna have a study group of folks here as part of our plan moving forward for 2026 and everything, to really give a hard look on space utilization. It'd be problematic to really do much with this building because of HVAC issues and stuff like that. We're gonna look at a modular focus on something on the property, how we can do certain things at the down in 35 area. You remember we just did the first phase of a project down there. Something that you may see come before the board in the next few months is some preliminary thoughts about what we want to do for space.
Is that department members brainstorming? Is that department member brainstorming or a separate team or?
It's really the department, because they really know what space we're gonna need, so we need to look at it. As you can see, we don't have a really big conference area, we don't have a training area that was being used. So we just need to get smart about it, and that probably would be part of their capital plan moving forward, 5-year capital plan.
Who want to mention anything about enhance?
No.
Go ahead. It's okay, it's all right. Our next board meeting is Friday, July 25th. At 9 o'clock, there will be a meeting with the audit committee at 8:30. And that'll be followed by a finance committee meeting, and I suspect that we will not start the board meeting at exactly 9 o'clock.
You can bet on it.
Yeah. I think we're good. If there's nothing else to discuss, can I get a motion to adjourn? So move. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.